Hello, you beautiful people. Welcome back to the Long Term Podcast. I'm your host, Admin Villa. Today, we have advocate for body positivity and eating disorder awareness, Allie Hanson. We will discuss eating disorders and control, the comments you get being at an unhealthy low body weight, and the ongoing struggles despite overcoming the eating disorder. This is a very powerful episode, and for all of you struggling, Allie Hanson, she provides a lot of great insights on overcoming this, and there's a lot of vulnerability, and just the rawness of it all is fantastic. Everyone, welcome. Yeah, everybody, welcome, Allie Hanson. Yeah, tell me a little bit about yourself.
My name's Allie Hanson. I'm 22. I work at a registry here in Sherwood Park, which is pretty exciting most days. Other days, it's pretty not fun. People can be quite upset with the government, and I'm not the government, but they like to take it out on me. So I actually just think it's like funny when I get yelled at, and I'm just like, okay, cool. That's
like I've got nothing to do with politics.
So
small portion, but it's just I don't have any say in the
politics,
laws.
So but yeah, I live down the street from Admin. That's not that exciting.
No,
but
I see you all the time. It's crazy. Have you always lived there?
2018, and we actually just got new neighbors.
Oh yeah.
Yes. The house that's like right across from mine. They just. I was told it was an older couple. It's not an older couple. They're 30 and 32. The person who left the house told me they were 50. So, yeah, I've
seen that there's a lot of kids playing outside now. Is there like a Facebook group? How did they all just band together?
But the house on the corner has like 5 kids, and they're not awful, but the amount of times I've driven down the road and their bike's just in the middle of the road and they stare at me as I'm sitting there waiting for them to move it, and they don't move their bike. And then the house next to it also has 5 kids.
Yeah.
And then there was 2 in the house that just left. And then there's another 2 next to it. So there's like 12 kids in the span of like 4 houses.
Yeah. Yeah. And they all just kind of banded together like pretty recently this year.
Yeah.
I didn't see them last year.
No, I never saw kids outside.
They're always at the basketball court.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's talk about eating disorders.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, and control. Can you share your experience of how your eating disorder was more about gaining control rather than body image?
Yeah. I guess like growing up, I had a very uncontrollable household would be the word. It was very hostile, and like a lot of fights broke out and arguing constantly. And my parents split up in the 5th or 4th grade. And in the span of like those 2 years too, I lost, when we were in St. Teresa, we always used to go down to the kindergarten class, and we had kindergarten buddies. And the kindergarten buddy I had picked had passed away the year before my parents got divorced. Then my parents got divorced, and then my grandpa passed away. So in like the span of 3 years, just like uncontrollable things happened I had no control over. And then both of my brothers too growing up had like outbursts, and they were always fighting with my parents and things like that. And so I could never control that. And then just a lot of like things happening out of my control all the time. And then with all of that, my parents had to really focus on my one brother quite a bit, just because there was like behavioral issues, mental disorders that we didn't know about, and all of that. So they had to give a lot of their attention to him. And it caused me unknowingly, like I didn't find all of this out until like 4 years ago, truly how it affected me, but it caused me to like develop this really bad abandonment disorder, because it's not like they weren't there and they weren't like neglectful, but they weren't there in the way that like I needed them growing up. As like our whole family was going through all of these things, I took them on like 10 times harder than anyone else. And so they weren't there to like talk when I needed them to. They weren't like there to give me the emotional support when I needed to. And so over the years, I just kind of felt like nothing was in my control anymore. And like same within school, like I'd be at school and things would happen with my brother, and I'd be like out on the playground, like still in like the 3rd and 4th grade, and people would be like, your brother's a monster. Like, what are you going to do about it? Like, how are you going to fix this? Like, you need to go do something about it. And I was like 8 and 9 and 10. And I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like,
when you're that young.
yeah, like if
this isn't my fault. Like, I didn't ask for this. And your parents have minimal resources with their energy, right? Like every single person. And sure, they want to be there for you, but there's only so much they can do when you do have another family member that needs a lot more energy than you. And it does affect you, truly.
Yeah. And like, I hold no resent against them for anything. Like, if anything, I'm so thankful that like the energy was put into that situation, because if it wasn't, I don't think our family would be the way it is now. Like, it's a full 180. Like, things are so much better. Like, we can all like sit down and have normal conversations and like enjoy each other's company without like fights breaking out or somebody getting upset. And it never used to be that way. And so just at like some point, it was in September of 2019, right before I started grade 12, I didn't really know I was doing it. It just kind of like happened. Like, I was aware I wasn't eating, but I was just like whatever, like this is normal. So I'd like eat breakfast, and then I just like wouldn't eat anything until like the end of the day. I'd get to around like 4th block, and I'd be like, oh, I like don't feel good. Like, I feel dizzy. Like, I can feel like my body's not like at its full like potential. So I'd be like, oh, well, I'll just go get like something small and I'll just eat that. And so over like as time went on, I just like stopped eating and would only like eat small amounts and like be like, well, that's what I can control. Like, I can't control what's going on in my brother's head. I can't control what's going on in my mom's head. Like, even like at a point with all those other factors playing into it, I couldn't control like my own emotions. And I was fighting with my mom all the time. Having outbursts that like I shouldn't have been having. Like, I was just like a confused hormonal teenager. And with all of the emotions playing into it, it just like came tenfold at me, and I was out of control. And so I was like, well, then I'll just like control my eating. And I didn't think of it that way. Like, I knew I had a problem with eating, and I knew that like it should change, but it wasn't until I like sat down with a dietitian and like my therapist, and they're like, well, like 85% of the time, it's not actually about like body image. It's that you're trying to control something, and like you're trying to control your body image, or you're trying to control this or that, but it's not actually like, I'm going to starve myself so that I lose a bunch of weight.
Yeah. You wanted to establish control. Well, in retrospect, you didn't really know it at the time that that's what you were doing, but now it all makes sense. It makes sense that, oh, because things were tough at home, because you're discombobulated, because the trajectory of your everyday life just seemed devoid of that compassion, of that stability. Your mind looks for ways to cope. And with many endeavors, right, there's all these different choices that we make, paths that seem to be the best way for you to cope. And when you're a growing child, when you don't know what's going on in the household, when you come home and you don't know whether, your sibling is out and doing something again and doing this, or because you're also going through your own thing.
Yeah.
Right? And you had said that you wanted them to be there, but there's just only so much they could do. But the beautiful thing about all of this too is, now that your family knows how bad life can get.
Yeah.
You establish gratitude. You establish that there is hope, that, like, we can triumph and we can get back from this once very unstable family to now you guys can have conversations and you guys are there to support each other. And yeah, there's always so much that we can learn from those bad times. But with the eating disorder that you had gone, was that shameful for you? Like, I'm sure that, on the onset of it, like, you probably feel good, right? You're losing weights, and you see some some gains, let's
Yeah.
say, when it comes to maybe your body image. But at what point did you realize that, oh, this is not good for me?
Probably in grade 12, I had like a teacher look at me at some point, and they didn't know it at the time that I was going through all of this, but I can't remember what exactly we were doing, but they just looked at me and they're like, "You're skinny. Like you've dropped in weight, like drastically." And I was just like, "Yeah, like I guess so. Like I don't really know." And the whole like not being able to make it throughout the day without feeling I was going to pass out, I was like, this probably isn't like the most healthy situation I'm in. But at the same time, like I remember like going out for lunch with my friends and like nobody would eat. Like,
That was a common trend.
yeah, just like we'd all go out for lunch like at ABJ, and it's just like, well, nobody would eat. Or like one
Really?
person would be like, I'm going to go get food, and everyone else just would be like, okay.
Did women judge each other were you guys insecure to eat around each other?
I never was.
Huh.
No, I remember like in grade 9 when, I started smoking weed and all that, all of my friends would be like, I'm not hungry. And I'd be like, well, I'm starving right now. So I'm going to go eat like as much food as I can. And like, it wasn't like I was like binge eating or anything. I was just, stoned and had the munchies. And so wanted to like eat a bunch of food. And everyone was like, how do you do it? Because even then, like so many of my friends weren't eating. Like looking back on it in high school, like I probably had the most normal relationship with food out of all of my friends for years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
it just switched.
Yeah, it just switched. All of a sudden I was like, I became not hungry. And because of my eating disorder, I also developed this thing called GERD. I can't remember the full acronym for it, like the real words, but it's like gastro reflex disorder essentially. And so I just like constantly like be throwing up and have like really bad acid reflux. And the only thing that helped it was eating, but I wouldn't eat. And so it was just
just a compounded.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Jeez.
It was not fun.
Bad. And there's just so many teens now, especially with the advent of social media and the comparison, kind of the psychology of the way they've made these applications.
Yeah.
Just hijacking the reward system. And yeah, a lot of women, men as well, do not feel enough. And this misconception of what is real and what isn't.
Yeah, like all the people like you see on social media, like everyone's like, well, that's the standard you want to reach to. But it's like, but is it really? Like, almost every celebrity or influencer is photoshopping their photos. Yeah. Like, it's all like smoothed out. It's all this.
Best angle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's all like a planned to the T, like what you're going to post. And they all know how to pose their bodies so that it's like in a certain way. And I think that's something that like people don't understand is that like you can be sitting up straight and look like completely like toned and like all that. And then the second you slouch, it's like, whoa, like what happened to my body? Yeah. And it's like, well, nothing happened. Like you're just.
Yeah. Just not the best angle.
Exactly.
And I mean, to demand perfection is just it's futile. It's pointless.
Yeah.
What were some of the external factors that contributed to your need for control through an eating disorder?
A lot of it was my brother. And it's like I don't like blame him. Like I don't like look at it and be like, you're the reason I had an eating disorder. Like it's nothing like that at all. And he knows that. Like we had a very long conversation before I came on here. And I was like, I don't want you to listen to this and like think I'm blaming you or like that you were the whole reason any of this happened. It's just like I said, and I never would have used this word until I sat down with my parents, my therapist, and she was like, well, you were neglected. And I was like, I hate that word. It has such like a negative connotation around it. And like you hear like the worst of the worst stories with neglected. And it's like children who are malnourished and like locked in their rooms and like absolutely just like abandoned. And it was never anything like that. But in order to have a normal functioning family as best as we could, my brother needed to get help. And he needed my parents to focus on fighting for that help because so much of it isn't accessible. Like it's been years and years of trying to see certain people and trying to get certain diagnoses for him. And it's just finally happening. Like And so if it wasn't for her like fighting and standing up and like, especially my mom, like my mom took full initiative in it and like fighting with like school boards and standing the ground and just being like, that doesn't, like, that's not how it should be. Like, nobody's listening. Nobody's seeing it from our side, which didn't always have to be, but it was very like, well, there was an emotional outburst and he handled it poorly. And so that needs to change. And it does. Like, he does have to be accountable for his actions and all of that. But at the same time, like, I personally find unless like there's a physical disability, it's like, oh, well, you aren't like hindered in any which way.
Yeah, this is all just behavioral. Just take accountability, you know, just parent better. This is a lot of kind of the doctrine that the establishments follow.
Yeah.
But no, your mom's a trooper. And for all of the people listening, I went to school with Allie's brother and I got to witness, you know, probably not to the fullest degree as to you had, like kind of the outbursts. And as elementary kids, I think if he's listening right now, I think a lot of the kids right now that I've talked to that we went to school with there, we all deeply regret not being more compassionate. I do. And yeah, it's just we could have been more understanding, and kids are mean. Like in elementary and middle school, we are ruthless.
Oh yeah. I wasn't compassionate for years. I was just like, why can't you just like
grow up?
Exactly. Why can't you just be a normal human being? And then like once like sitting down and talking about it, I was like, oh, yeah, like there's a lot more to this than I don't even understand.
Like, I was not born, like, sure, we are related, but the genetics are different. And what may happen to him may be completely different in perception if it does happen to me. Maybe I'm like, sure, I'm a person that was born the same kind of era, Gen Z, but maybe they just work a certain different way and they need more compassion, more sunlight. Like, who knows?
Exactly.
But it's just understanding it from their point of view and going, okay, like this is, you just got to be more understanding.
Yeah. And so like with all of that, I developed BPD, so borderline personality disorder, which so many people, I'll tell them that too. And you're like, oh, you have like different personalities. And I'm like, no, it's really not like that at all. That's what my fear of abandonment comes from. So because I didn't have the attention or like the resources I needed as a kid, I felt abandoned all the time. And so it like, I don't even really know how to fully explain it still. I know Tegan did an episode with you and she explained it really well.
Yeah, even Maddie said she had it yesterday. Kayer? Yeah. Or not yesterday, but when we filmed it on Friday, was it? One thing I've been wanting to ask you guys, do you guys ever get that feeling where you didn't do anything wrong, but you're talking to someone and you feel like you did something wrong?
All the time.
Like, I don't have BPD, not that I know of.
Yeah.
But
I'll come home like from work and my mom will just like say something and I'll be like, what did I do? And she's like, what do you mean? And I was like, okay, maybe I understood your tone wrong, but like I get this feeling that like you're mad at me. And she's like, no, like not at all.
But when they tell you, when your mom tells you she's not mad at you at all, do you believe her?
I used to not. I used to like, that would be the thing that would cause fights between us. And I'd be like, no, like I constantly feel like I'm the biggest disappointment in the world to you and that I can't do anything right. And I've just like learned that like, I have to be like, okay, this is how I took your tone. And she's like, I'm sorry that I took it, like that my tone came across that way, but it's not what I meant. Like I find if I ask her to like, can you say that again? Or can you explain that in a different way? I'm like, oh, okay. Like that's just my brain and my BPD taking it and mixing it that way. So I feel abandoned.
Yeah, that's fair. It's great that you're able to understand yourself and be open about it though. And fully.
It took a really long time.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of shame to it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of just stigma onto kind of the mental health side of things. And there is a lot of empowerment to opening about it. And certainly it comes to the you need to be able to do something about it though, because sure, we can talk about we can talk about being vulnerable, like, yeah, I have abandoned issues,
Yeah.
my family member did this, this happened to me. If you don't do anything about it,
No.
like if
Yeah.
nothing's gonna happen, and I've certainly seen that too.
Mm-hmm.
So I know we touched up on this a little bit before the pod. You had a victim mentality.
Yeah.
And
I a lot of it comes from the fear of abandonment. And so like not only that, but when my parents split up and my dad lived on his own, like me and my dad did everything together. Like when I was at my mom's house, I'd go out every single day after school and wouldn't be home till like 9 or 10 o'clock. When I was at my dad's house, he'd always pick me up on his way home from work and we'd cook and eat dinner together and then like watch whatever show was on at the time. So it was either like Survivor or Big Brother or
good
just
shows.
like random shows.
Yeah.
And so when he finally met somebody, it became like the three of us doing it all the time, which was okay. But me having like the stemmed issues I already had, I was like, I'm losing my dad. And so with that and with like my brother and all of that things, I was just like, and I was like super religious at the time too. I was working at a Bible camp and I was like very devoted in my faith. And I was just like, why? Like, why am I getting handed all of these awful cards? Why do I have to struggle so much? Like, why does my life suck? And I had a very hard time, like, being like, not like I, like, you know, everyone's always the problem at some point. But I was like, I'm not doing anything wrong. Like, I'm just getting, like, handed the shit hand. Like,
yeah, this isn't karma. I didn't do anything in the first place. Why am I sure I did some bad stuff, but it's not like I'm this person. Like that person's done worse stuff, but they don't seem to have.
And I was always so like
behaviors.
Defensive. Like if my friends and me ever had like a small argument, I was like extremely defensive, like couldn't admit that I did anything wrong. I'd always like deflect it back onto them. And I think that like all of it just like was like, why are you being so like hard on yourself? Yeah. And why can't you sit there and like self-reflect and like realize that you have things to be grateful for and realize that like bad things happen to everyone and you can't like compare yourself. Like you can never compare what the bad things that happen to you to somebody else because everybody handles it differently. Everybody processes it differently. And it's just like, as much as like bad things happen to you, it doesn't make you the victim. You have to take it and look at it as like a perspective. It's like, okay, this happened and it sucked. It was awful. It was horrible and it really hurt. But now from like going through it and feeling all these things, like how can I like do better? And how can I be better? And how can I take what I've learned in this situation and apply it to the next situation to like handle it better and process it better? And once I like actually switched to being like, okay, like I allowed myself to be sad about it and I allowed myself to be like, this sucked. But it was like I gave myself like a day of that. And then I'm like, okay, like you can't keep like beating yourself up for this or like holding it down and like being sad and laying in bed and crying. You have to like step up and like
no one's coming to save you. And while I am Christian, well, I think God is there for you. You need to be able to use the opportunities that he presents yourself. And it goes that story of the flood where this man is stranded and there's all these people that come one by one, like 5 of them keep coming to him going, hey, do you need help? And the guy stranded in the flood goes, no, God's got me. It's all good. Yeah. And then another one. And then he eventually dies. And then he asks God, why did you just let me drown? It's like, I didn't just let you drown. I sent 5 people to save you. Yeah. And I think that's just what I've learned is like a lot of people will ask me, oh, why, like, how is that? It's not real. We go through all this suffering. There's no meaning to any of this. And I just go, you are in Canada. You are alive. There is life. There's consciousness. There's all these beautiful things. And I think this is all kind of for a plan. And I don't think there's any other way. Personally, I think. And I think what you have gone through too is testament that you are of the resilient type and you can overcome these tough situations, and you can derive a lot of growth. And how did you recognize this underlying need for control help in your recovery process?
Once I figured out that like I was like, okay, I'm trying to control something. I was like, okay, so instead of like restricting your eating and like not eating at all during a day, you have to like eat. And you have to like at least at least 3 meals a day still. You don't have to like have big meals a day, but you can't just like keep living off of 1 meal a day because it's not allowing like your body to function. Like I was losing hair. There was no life left to my face. Like everybody knew it. Everybody was like, Allie, like you don't look good. And I was like, well, like
Your
whatever.
friends were telling you that? Like,
Yeah.
hey, Allie, like you do not look, you look like shit.
Yeah.
Like, they were
like
just straight up with you?
Yeah. My two best friends were like, this isn't good. Like, this is not fun. And it was like right during COVID too. And I just turned 18. And so I was never eating. And of course, all we did during COVID was drink. And so I'd just get like insanely way too drunk. And it was just like not fun. And then I'd like wake up again and do it the next day. And I was like, okay, like at some point this has to stop. Like you can't just like allow yourself to keep decaying. Like you have to like take control of something else. And so at the start of COVID, I moved in with my cousins for 3 months. They live in like Vermilion, which is like 30 minutes outside of Lloyd. And they would not tolerate me not eating. That was not an option. I was like not like forced to eat, but they're like, if you're staying with us, like you have to look after yourself. And so I'd eat 3 meals a day. My cousin would make me work out with him, which I hated. It was awful. It was not awful, but me being like an 18-year-old girl, I was like, I hate this. And he's like, well, that sucks. Like you're gonna do it. And like I'd sit there and like not like cry, but I'd like pout and I'd like put a little fit, and he'd be like, it's good for you. And then eventually like I left the 3 months later and I was like, I miss the gym. Like I miss the gym they had in their garage. Like I wish I was still there working out. And so I think that was the big thing. Like COVID hit and I like looked at my mom and I was like, I'm leaving. Like I think I had like a dentist appointment, and then I had like my very last dietitian appointment. And I was like, I'm coming home from that dietitian appointment and I'm leaving.
What did your mom take it?
I don't think she loved it, but at the same time, I knew deep down that I could not be stuck in a house with my brother and all of that, because I'm such like I want to see my friends. Like I'm such a like not a homebody, and I'm not a homebody because home was so hostile. Yeah. And so it's just like I'd rather not be there, because if I'm there, then I don't like if I'm not there, then I don't know what's happening. I don't have to worry about like sitting in my room and my 2 brothers fighting over the Xbox. And things like that. And so I don't think she necessarily loved it, but like deep down she knew that it was what was best for me. And all of my friends hated it. And I was like, well, what are we supposed to do? Like, it's not like I can see you anyway. Like all of this. So I moved in with my cousins and we just watched Grey's Anatomy all the time. And she was 1.5 at the time. I like introduced her to Frozen and Moana.
Oh, and those are great movies.
Yeah, she figured out that the opening title had like a song to each one. And so if it wasn't Frozen or Moana, she'd walk up and turn the Xbox off. So I watched Frozen and Moana for 3 months straight. And then we like did gardening and everything. We completely redid their lawn. Like,
you guys should check out Elementals.
Is it
another Disney movie?
Oh, yes. Great. No, I have seen that one.
You have?
One? Yes.
Yeah, no, I cried like a little bitch.
Yes.
It was awesome.
I almost cried at every single Disney movie.
Me
one
too.
Of my flaws.
Me too. I'm like, that's so relatable.
Like, and I cannot wait to watch Inside Out too. That one's gonna hit different.
I want to watch Inside Out too, but there's just my group of friends. They go, hey, that's a bit too.
You can come watch it with me and my friend.
Not gay at all. It's just so manly. Yeah. And look at those emotions. We all got it in us.
Me and my best friend, I snapped her the other day. I was like, we're gonna like have a night. We're gonna sit in our jammies and like watch it. So you can come watch it too.
Yeah. Oh, sweet.
Yes.
Sweet. Awesome.
But yeah, and so I just like took control back and found like love in like doing all of these things outside again. And
I'm happy to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's awesome. Absorbing your story, all right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, 110%.
Okay. That's what I always worry about. I'm always worried that, oh, like, did I do a good enough job into listening and commenting and kind of adding value? Uh, so yeah, like a lot of people make comments at the unhealthy weight. Hey,
Yes.
uh, so what types of comments did you receive when you were at an unhealthy low weight, and how did they affect you?
I think the biggest comment I had received was I've never looked like people would be like, you've never looked so good. And I was like,
But a lot of people said you look like shit.
yes, my
Yeah.
friends did. So my close friends, they would tell me,
Okay.
they'd be like, Allie, like,
Oh, okay.
yes.
Okay.
But like
Mhm.
strangers and like random people and like new people I was talking
You
to
were
or
like
new.
encouraged to be
Yeah.
at that weight.
Yeah. Like my best friends, like my two really best friends all throughout high school and everything, like they were like, Allie, like you don't look good. But
Mm.
then even like within our friend group, there was like the people we'd hang out with every now and then, and a lot of like male attention. I had a lot of males being like, you've never looked so good. Like, I had people who would never even look at me all of a sudden be like adding me on Snapchat and like talking to me and like trying to like
Oh
flirt
wow.
with me. And I was like,
Because you lost all
yeah.
this weight.
And I was like, at the time, I was like, okay, cool. Like, I had never had this attention before on me. And so it was nice. And then like a few months later, I was like, this isn't like normal. And I had a few friends who were bigger and they didn't necessarily like the way they looked. And they'd constantly be like, I wish I looked like you. And I was like, you can't say that. And like, I'd never say that to a stranger because like they don't know what you're going through. Like, if somebody just walked up to me on the street and they're like, wow, you're so skinny, like you look so good, I'd just be like, thank you. Like, but like to my, like when my friends would like make comments like, oh, I wished I looked like you, or like, you look so good, how did you do it? I just look at them and be like, well, like, starved myself.
Yeah.
Like,
You're just straight up with them?
yeah. And they're like, really? And I was like, yeah, like, you don't want to look like me. Like, I'm underweight. My hair is falling out. Like,
Yeah.
I don't sleep properly. Like, I'm awake for maybe 5 hours and then I have no energy at all and like just like completely depleted. And they'd be like, well, like, I just wish I was skinnier. And I was like, well, yeah, like, I understand that. But you also
There's
have to,
better ways to.
yeah. And like, vice versa. I have a friend who um is on medication and that medication makes her gain weight. And she's received a lot of comments being like, wow, like you're finally at a healthy weight. Like you look so good, like you've really buffed out. And it's like that has really taught me that like you never know what someone's going through. And you never know why all of a sudden they lost so much weight or why they're bigger or why they look the way they do. And this same friend pointed out, she's like, I live by like the 5-second rule. Like, if you can't fix something in 5 seconds, why would you point it out to somebody? But like, say you have something in your teeth. I'm gonna be like, Advin, you got something in your teeth. But say you have like this massive pimple on the side of your face. Like, you can't just like get rid of that in 5 seconds. So why would I point it out? And so
Oh, I've never heard of that.
either.
Yeah, where did you decipher that?
My friend told me.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was just like,
that's a pretty
like,
cool rule.
that's something I live by.
Yeah.
And so I try and not like you aren't gonna walk up to someone and be like, oh, like you're overweight.
Yeah.
Like they can't change that in 5 seconds. They can't change that in 5 minutes, let alone 5 hours. Like, how are you supposed to just like
You're not even 5 days. You have to, it's like an extensive procedure of just planning out a meal, making sure that you're getting good sleep, making sure that you find the diet that works for you, just the encouragement from your friends and family, the self-talk, the affirmations, mastering the form of the workouts, just being able to go there and be comfortable talking to strangers and asking them for help. It's that's a great rule. The 5 second.
Yeah, kind of like if you put food falls on the floor, you only got 5 seconds to pick it up and eat it. But like,
okay, I like that.
I know.
Yeah,
she was like telling me about it the other day, and she's like,
dope.
Never. And I was like, I've never thought about that. Like, that's a really good like rule to live by. And so like, I just think that like so many people like don't really know what's going on. Like, so many of the people who told me I'd never look so good, or like oh, like you got hot all of a sudden, or like
Mm-hmm.
all those like comment, it's like you look so good, or like how'd you do it, or like you're so pretty now. It was like you don't know
Yeah.
what's actually going on the inside.
Yeah, you don't know what's going on in my mental psyche. Right?
Exactly. And so you can't like, I'd never hold it against anyone. Like I'd never be like, I can't believe they said that to me. Like that was so rude of them, because they don't know. They can't see what's going on in my head. They aren't my best friends who know that I'm struggling. They're just people who see the outside perspective, just like people do on Instagram. They're like, they don't know what's going on. They don't know if that person's struggling or not, or if they're taking medication to make them lose weight, taking medication that just makes them gain weight, like not like intentionally. That's just the type of meds they're on. And so, yeah, it was like, it was hard for sure. Cause then it was like, oh, like, should I keep this up? Like, should I still like continue to starve myself and like restrict my like eating habits and like not indulge in what I want to and not actually like live a proper life just so that I have like the approval from society? And I was like, no, it's not worth it like that. And it was like, I was at an age too where it was like, oh, like male attention, like this is nice. Like I watched all throughout my high school, like my friends like go through relationships and have like boyfriends and have like people flirting with them or people hitting on them. And I would just be like sitting there being like, I just want to hang out with my friends.
And we all have that one very attractive friend.
Yeah.
That anytime you talk to the opposite sex, they're always like, sooner or later, they always ask, hey, is your friend single? Or is your
Exactly.
friend this? And it's
right.
like,
And all of a sudden,
yeah.
like that was happening to me.
yeah.
And so I was like, oh, like
Yeah.
this is like a nice change. And then I really like thought about it and I was like, all this because I'm not healthy. Like, and I think it was hard. Like, it was like, that really made me look at society in like a really messed up way. I was like, all these people want you to be skin and bones in order to be considered like pretty. And it's like, in my mind, like that's not pretty. And it like, I shouldn't say that because some people are built very small and they don't hold weight and they just like are skin and bones. But it's like, when you aren't built that way and that's how you like make yourself look, it's like, that's not how you should be. And you should love your body no matter what.
Well, it needs to be rooted in realism and it needs to be rooted in kind of the, instead of a delusion of going, okay, because the male attention, the attention of the opposite sex is giving me, giving me these feel good chemicals of dopamine, of just self, of validation, doesn't mean it is the best course of action. Doesn't mean you should keep going. And we all know internally whether it's the best course of action, because, okay, do I feel like depleted 24/7? Do I feel content with my well-being? Like, do inside?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people may look phenomenal on the external side, but then they have struggle with 4 or 5 hours of sleep. They cannot focus on a certain thing.
Yeah.
And if you're cutting out a certain food in your life and you're restricting yourself, and to the point where your life is devoid of happiness and meaning just because you want that validation from a certain person or the opposite sex, then you certainly need to do some reevaluation, do some self-introspection, because at the end of the day, you matter. Your psyche, your mental health needs to be stable on the long term. Because if you're, for 2 years, sure, you could do that, but eventually you're going to hit a wall and you're going to fall hard with your face first.
Yeah.
How do you think society's perception and comments on body weight impact those struggling with eating disorders?
I think it like almost encourages it. And I've learned a lot that like fasting is like, it can be very beneficial and it can be very healthy and things like that. But there's a difference between fasting and like actual like disordered eating. And so like so many people on like social media are like, oh, like I saw this diet, like I saw this fast, like I'm going to do it. And then they don't actually like read everything about it. They don't read that you still have to like be filling yourself with electrolytes or like drinking water throughout the day.
Yeah.
And I find that a lot of people do not drink water. Like throughout high school, I was not a water drinker. Like I was not the person who carried around a water bottle and all of that. And then like once I started drinking water, I was like, whoa.
Like, whoa, this is a game
Yeah.
changer.
Feeling hydrated all the time is crazy. Like it's awesome. And so I think just like everything that's put on social media and the way that like influencers look and like celebrities look is just so like little. Like I remember being a little girl and being like, oh, like I wish I had a thigh gap. And I was like, why at the age of like 6 and 7 are you thinking about that? Like that's not something that like you should be worrying about. You should be worrying about if you can go home and play with your Barbies.
Yeah, just imaginary friends and
yeah,
playing with your cars and the Barbies. But yeah, who taught us this? Like there's like some, like, I remember looking in the mirror when I was 9. I remember just looking for symmetry on my face. Like I'd be, sometimes during recess, I'd stay inside the whole recess just to look at myself in the mirror. And yeah, in retrospect, now it sounds like terrible. Like if I saw a 8-year-old doing that, I'm like, why is he just looking at himself in the mirror? I'd be like, that is a very unhealthy kid. And like, I thought like beauty was instilled in me. My mom kind of, when I was in the Philippines, kind of, she really prioritized beauty and kind of she raised me into like wanting the lotion, the skincare, and you have to have this, you have to eat healthy. And why do you eat healthy? So you can look good. There was no emphasis on kind of the feeling aspect.
Yeah, it was all about the physique.
Yeah, it was always like, oh, like you need to be liked. You needed to look a certain way. And yeah, now if I ever raised my kid, like sure, I don't blame my parents because they did their best.
And that's probably how they were raised.
Yeah,
and that's probably
yeah.
like, I think at that time too, like when our parents were being raised is when people finally started being like, oh, like obesity is a thing.
Yeah.
And like I don't really know for sure, but I have a feeling like that it was all during then that like that happened. Because I know my mom had an eating disorder.
Yeah.
And it was never about like body image and stuff, but it was definitely about like control. But it all stemmed from like, do I look good enough?
Well, I mean, I think 2011 was the first year where more people die of obesity than of starvation.
Yeah.
And so I think in your case too, the reason that is so, a lot of people really complimented you and encouraged it, reinforced it, was because they were probably struggling with eating too much. And so when they see a person that is skinny with the thigh gap, with shredded, like for men, they go, oh, since I can't do it, that must mean that this is something worth having.
Yeah.
But no, there's this Joe Rogan said this thing where just because something is hard to obtain doesn't mean it's worth having. Like you see people driving in Lamborghinis, you see a lot of people with this entire physique. Like I see this, like people at the gym, like a Millennium Place, I see these guys with like single digit body fat. They're benching all this weight. But I'd argue a lot of it's actually rooted in insecurity. You know what I mean? Like just because something takes years to build, just because something is unattainable for you doesn't mean that it's for you.
Yeah.
And society taught you that. Like for you, you ask yourself, like you're very emotionally intelligent. So how do you know when something is for you?
I think it takes a bit, obviously. Like I'm always like willing to try something or like close my mind to it. But I think too, it's like a lot of reflecting. And it's like, okay, like what is almost something like similar to like this new experience that you've done before? And how did that turn out? Like, how did that make you feel? And what were the pros and what were the cons of it? Because like you said, just because it is hard to obtain doesn't mean it's worth it. And just because it's like, oh, like obtaining it though, since it's so hard, is going to feel really empowering. Is like, but is it worth it? Like, is it worth putting your body through excruciating pain or like never getting sleep or like depriving yourself of true happiness? Like,
Like if you woke up the next day, you were a billionaire, like sure, you have all that money, but is that worth it? I mean,
Yeah.
like, are you going to develop any relationships, any
And what'd
good
you
fruitful relationships at
what'd
all?
you do to get there? Just work for like hours
Yeah.
and hours on
Yeah.
end and never spend
Yeah,
time in
you're 60, you're on top of the mountain, you look around, there's no one there. There's no one there.
because you were so busy like putting your focus into other things that did you spend time with your friends?
Yeah.
Like did you
Yeah.
maintain those relationships or did you throw everything away just for this one thing?
Yeah.
And it's like I think that's a lot of what I look at is I'm like such like a like money's not going to make me happy. Materialistic things aren't going to make me happy. Like I'm such like as long as I have people and I have like a good village around to support me, like that's what's going to make me happy at the end of the day.
I believe that, and I've internalized that, not to the full degree, but when I give a scroll through my social media and or even when I watch movies, like I was watching Peaky Blinders last night. Have you seen that?
I like tried to watch season 1 of it, but I never
not
finished
your
it.
Thing.
No.
Yeah, I see these like they're always like very good looking on there. Like the skin's glowing, even though they have like the main character, his name's Thomas Shelby.
That's Cillian Murphy, right?
Yeah, Cillian Murphy.
Cillian Murphy like is just constantly good looking.
Yeah, he's a very good looking guy.
Yes.
But it's just like I think he's like approaching 50 now.
Yeah,
right?
and
like
I would
looking
not
like
think
in his
that.
20s.
Yeah, he's
when I
very.
see that, I'm like, is that realistic? Like,
I think he has a lot of Botox.
No, he does.
Okay,
Yeah. Like a lot of procedures. I mean, he's got all that money.
Yeah,
but
I know. I see some photos of his face, and I'm like, you're giving off Squidward right now.
Yeah. Same with I was gonna say Matthew McConaughey, but a lot of like people are giving him flack for getting a hair transplant, but he denies that he had hair transplant. Just like internet stuff.
Yeah, I mean, just buy a wig
but
then.
like you have to understand that these people are just people, and they have like you can clearly tell they have their insecurities, and they need to put up that way they're actors, right? And so when you just because it's difficult to obtain doesn't mean it's worth having. I think a lot of people think that when they become famous or when they do this, when they do that, it's going to solve all their problems. But there's never going to be a day where you're going to wake up and all your problems are going to be solved. Like I've never had a day. Maybe when I was like 5.
Right, when you didn't have real things to worry about.
Have like real things.
And you just got to wake up, didn't go to school, just got to like play like whatever you wanted all day.
You slept when you wanted to sleep. You got angry when you wanted to get angry. Like I'm looking at my my 6-year-old brother and I'm going, man, like once this guy becomes conscious.
Yeah, I look at my 5-year-old cousin who like she's a 3-year-old brother and they go at it. Like it is they fight over the most like ridiculous things. And I get it. Like you're 5 and 3, what are you gonna do? But I'm like, just you wait.
You like, wait when real life hits.
Yeah. Just
like,
you wait until it's not like fun and games and you actually have to like we were doing school the other day I was there and she was like, I hate this. And I was like, just you wait. Like you hate like learning how to count right now. Like just wait until you have to do
taxes and you have to provide for yourself and maybe for a partner and have to abide by society and not everyone's gonna be nice to you.
No.
But,
they have it coming for them for sure.
I can learn a lot from kids. I used to think that way,
right? I know. I was like, I used to do that and now look at me. Like
I'm sure you heard of like mindfulness and kind of like meditation and all that kind of in the self-improvement space. But I'd attribute a lot of that to like thinking like a kid again. Like when you're a kid, as we talked about, you just feel your emotions for when they come. And that's kind of when you feel kind of that anger. You feel through it. You don't suppress it. You just let it flow. When you want to cry, you just cry. When you just are interested, you're fully engaged. And I see that in my brother and I go, wow, like I should take some notes onto how like I derive a lot of wisdom. Or even I've got 2 dogs and a lot of them there's days where they just don't feel like doing, or my dog has an issue with his legs. Yes. But he's not contemplating whether
it's just some days it's worse than the others.
Yeah. He doesn't compare himself. He just gets up, gets food, gets water. And I certainly derive a lot of wisdom from my dogs and my little brother.
My favorite thing my 5-year-old cousin says when she's like crying or whatnot, she's just like, I'm just so upset.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, what are you upset about? She's like, I'm just so upset.
Yeah.
And she like runs off to her room and like slams her door. And then she comes back out. She's like, I was angry.
I feel chill now.
Yeah.
Like for us, like when we do that, oh, there's this embarrassment. Like, oh, what are they going to think of me? Like, and then we think, oh, like maybe they'll cut me off.
Yeah.
They're never going to love me anymore. But then, yeah, if you just stopped overthinking things.
Yeah.
And sleep it off. Like it just solves like some of the most heinous things that we think of, or some of the most kind of destructive.
Yeah.
It's not that bad. Like what you're doing isn't end of the world.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. So even with the ongoing, like we talked about how you have overcome this, and you're very self-introspective now, and you are in tune with your emotions per se. And so there are still going to be struggles, right? So the ongoing struggles after overcoming an eating disorder, despite technically overcoming your eating disorder, what triggers do you still face when your mental health declines?
If I'm like having a bad day, or like something triggers my fear of abandonment, and I'm just like in the ruts, like can't stop thinking about it, like my body just like naturally doesn't want to eat. Like I'll always eat breakfast and lunch. I always ensure that I'm eating those 2 meals no matter what. But then I'll come home for dinner and I'm just like, I'm not hungry. And my mom knows. Like she'll instantly be like, are you okay? And I'll be like, yeah, like I'm okay. I'm just having a bad day. Like gonna go take some time in my room, like think about it, like process it, journal it out, try and like work through it, figure out what's actually causing me to feel this way. And then hopefully I'll come eat. And normally by like 9 or 10 o'clock, I'm hungry. And so I'm like, okay, I'll come eat now. But yeah, there's some days like I'll try and like make myself eat, and I'm like sitting at the table, like everything in me trying not to like throw up. Like my body just like does not want to eat if I'm not having a good day. And it's like frustrating because I'm like, mentally I know that like I can't keep doing this, but I'm like, it's just like a bump in the road. Like it's not like you're fully aware of what's going on. Like I'm sitting there like knowing why this is happening and knowing why I'm not hungry. But I just have to like almost allow my body to like retaliate in that way. And then once it's like retaliated and it's like calm and it's like everything's okay now, there's nothing to be upset about, it's like I'm instantly hungry.
Well, you know what works for you.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people, different set of problems, but they don't know how their body works. They don't know how their mind works, and they just give in, whether it be about alcohol, whether it be some insert drug use or gambling addiction, because it's that lack of self-introspection.
Yeah.
And yeah, that takes a lot of self-work, kind of what you just described there, where, okay, there's a lot of, I could tell there's a lot of thinking involved in there, and a lot of kind of speculation and a lot of trial and error, and there's big setbacks. And yeah, it's tremendous work to be able to look at your actions objectively, or try to be objective about it, and then look at your behavior, kind of like you're like an analyst, hey, and you go, okay, this has happened before in the past. I know why this happened. Maybe because the lady at work was mean to me, or maybe because I got 5 hours of sleep. You know the triggers.
Yeah.
You just then now, okay, how can I provide a solution for this?
Exactly.
At which points did I give in and I just made it worse? Because a lot of us are very destructive in a way. Like, I know for me, I used to have this mentality of, I've already done it. Might as well make it worse. Like I've already
started.
I've already started. Like might as well like fully annihilate myself.
Yeah.
Right? And I feel a lot of people have that mentality, but to look back and go, no, yes, you've started, but there you can stop. You don't have to. The finger's been chopped off. You don't have to chop off your entire arm.
Right? Exactly. Like you can stop it if you wanted to, and it's almost better to stop it than continue going. Because once you're like so far into it, trying to like go back is like feels almost impossible.
Destruction is so much more potent, I find, because it takes like, I've been in like days where it's just a fully kind of very, very zen, journaled, and I had a phenomenal day with my friends, afternoon, healthy lunch, went to the gym. Then this one thing, this negative thing just uproots.
Mm-hmm.
And my brain is just discombobulated. And that's all I can focus on. That's all I can think about. And that's, oh, my life's going to end. Why is this happening to me? This, God must hate me, and all this stuff, this litany of just self-blame. But then you zoom out and you go, no, I literally just spent time with my family, my friends. I had a good time at the gym. I'm alive.
Yeah, right? Like there's so many other things going on that are positive than this one small negative thing that happened today.
I think back then that was we needed to be like that, but in today's day and age, there's no point. Like you're not at, like there's no lion near you. Like
No.
you're not gonna die.
No.
Yeah.
And I think that's like so many things people forget is that like here in Canada specifically, we're so like the small things that happen to you are almost so superficial. Like obviously everybody goes through like horrific and traumatic things, like losing somebody, car accidents, like the things that are really serious. But like oh, my friend's mad at me because I said the wrong thing, or like
I haven't been hanging out with my friend. It's been 2 months. Do they still like me?
Right? Like my brother last year was stupid enough to go on a roller coaster with his phone in his pocket.
Oh no.
And lost it, as the Hanson family does. And yeah, normally like 2 years ago, that would like ruin his whole day. Like, and he lives in the States too. So it's not like he's here and like can just come home at the end of the day and like have my mom and dad help him. So no, he has to like wait to get home and like get on his computer and like WhatsApp my parents and be like, just so you know, like I lost my phone, but like
it doesn't mean it's
whatever
communication.
Like he literally was like unfazed by it. He's like, well, I may as well just like continue going on these roller coasters and like enjoying my day. And it's like that's literally all you can do. Like you can't let that one small thing like blow up your day.
True. Because you let this one thing, like if you let it ruin the trajectory of where your day is supposed to go, then you're not going to meet those opportunities.
Yeah.
Because because I got a flat tire, I'm just going to cancel this event that I was so excited for because, and then that event, you could have met some phenomenal person that you could have derived so much meaning from, or you could have just watched a movie right after that, after the party was over, and then got some contacts. It's like I always think about that because I have been in those times where there's no point. Like I've lost all meaning, and I've always just, then I look back and I go, no, like I was my biggest enemy. Like I didn't have to do that. Like it was just so real at the time and so heavy that I felt like there was no coming back.
Yeah. And I find if you like let that one thing bother you, like, and you like let it restrict you from doing something, or you let it take over, like the next day you wake up and you just feel it 10 times worse.
Yeah.
You feel the regret of not dealing with it. And it's just like, well, I didn't work through it. So now I'm just sitting here thinking about it even more, and it's just building up. Yeah. And then it's like, well, I let it ruin my day yesterday, and now I'm starting off this day on a bad foot. And like, I find if I do that too, it's like 10 times worse. Like I don't eat. I just like
float.
Yeah.
Let
literally just like, I'll go and get like fries from McDonald's, and I'll be like, this is sufficient enough for a meal. And I'm like, that's not good. Like if you're going to eat something, like go eat like a protein bar at least. So you're like real food, real fuel.
Like a fruit.
Like a
little apple.
Like,
the pain of regret, it weighs tons. But the pain of discipline, it weighs ounces. The thing that we don't want to do right now and that we put off can result in a lot more pain, because our future self is depending on us right now to do the thing. But when we don't do that thing, it's just the pain that future self feels is so immense. And we know that. We have it all in us to go, like people are, when they write a test, oh, I could have studied harder. Or when they're in that tough situation, I could have done this differently. I could have, should have, would have, could have. But no. Instead of going what ifs, you just go, okay, why don't I just travel in the storm, get to the other side where it's peace, instead of continuously running away from my problems and my fears and insecurities.
The farther you run away, the only longer the journey is back.
Yeah.
Like if the journey, like if you're starting here and you keep going that way, you now have to make up all that spare, like all that time.
Yeah. And the storm's always going to keep coming.
Yeah.
It's never going to stop.
Like life is literally like a mountain range.
Yeah.
It's rolling hills. You're going to go up one, come down the other, and be steady for a bit, and something else is going to come up.
Yeah. You're never going to be on top that bliss. Like I used to think that, oh, I'm going to be happy once this happens. I'm going to be happy once. I remember looking back in high school, if I saw myself right now, this is what I prayed for. This is what I just wanted God to bless me with. Now I'm finally here. Now I'm going, oh, what if I had a family? What if I had my own house? What if I had a stable career, $1 million? I know for a fact I'm going to look back again when I am there and I go, oh, I'm not going to, it's the happiness is still going to be the same. But then there's the discipline side of things. I'm sure if I wasn't there though, that regret would be immense. Mm-hmm. But like, it's just viewing life that way, where it is ups and downs, the ebbs and flows.
Like you can always add factors that make you more happy, like starting a family, changing your job, or like having more friends. Like you can always add more things that are going to make you happy, but that doesn't mean like dark times aren't going to come. Yeah, no, it's inevitable.
Come. Yeah. There's no kind of pure bliss 24/7. I don't think I've ever met someone that was just happy all the time. And if they are, that's an act. Like there's no way.
Yeah. Like I have a few friends who are like, they're pretty like emotionally strong and things don't get to them and stuff.
Yeah.
But like every now and then, like I'll catch them in a moment and I'll be like, oh, there it is. Like there's that ounce of emotion I didn't think you had.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people will put off that tough act, hey, of, oh, I'm strong, I'm hard. You see this in men and women.
Yeah.
But tough times will come and you just need to be able to prepare for those times, whether it be about your health, whether it be about like the practices of viewing yourself in a different light and going, okay, maybe behavioral therapy, psychoanalytical therapy is better, or maybe just talking about it, looking in the mirror, and a lot of helpful ways.
Yeah.
How do you manage and navigate these struggles to maintain your recovery?
A lot of it is I talk to my therapist.
Yeah.
I'm lucky enough that me and my therapist are very like close. And we've just like, I've always been that way. And so I can like email her and reach out like whenever anything's not okay. And I can be like, hey, like, I just need to get this out. And I just like, I've journaled it out and all of that. But like, I need you to just like remind me that like, this is normal. And that like, I've been there, I've done that, and I'm not alone. And she's so good for that. Like, I love my therapist. She's my best friend. I will tell anybody and everybody about her. Like,
oh yeah,
she's my favorite person on the whole entire planet. I think she's the coolest person ever.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then also journaling a lot. Like anytime like I'm really feeling something, like I'm just like, you need to get it out. Like holding something in is not helping you. And you can work through it as much as you want in your head. But sometimes when you write it out and you reread it all, you're like, oh, like I didn't even realize that is actually what I meant. Cause like I just write and then all of a sudden I'm rereading it and I'm like, whoa, I didn't realize like that's how I was really feeling, or that's what's truly causing this. And it allows you to like look at it from a different perspective.
Yeah. You ever see those videos of like the candid videos that somebody takes of you? Well, you don't notice it, so you're not really putting up an act. And like whether it be on Snapchat or whether it be just like a family camping trip.
Yeah.
And then you tell they tell you that you did something, or you were sad, or you're extremely happy. And you go from your perspective and you're like, I don't remember being that sad or that happy. And then you see that video and you go, whoa, like I could see from my body language, my facial expressions, that I was just brimming with happiness, or I look really fucking miserable.
Yeah,
Like,
right? Exactly.
But definitely the journaling is that way too, where you just kind of, you feel it all throughout, and then you coming back to it from a stable mind.
Right, yeah, like I journal, give myself 15, 20 minutes, and then I come back to it, and I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's a bit intense.
Some months. How did I, on August 10th, 2023, how did I feel? What I find, it's like the same thought loops, the same patterns.
Yeah.
It's like, for me, it's like the same patterns of shame, of self inadequacy, and just this high expectations, and the kind of the just not feeling enough. And to combat that, it's running, it's talking to people like you, it's being connected with my friends and family. And it's always just, it's a loop, it's a feedback loop.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And it's just, then you set up a plan, you set up like this, to approach the dilemma. There's the self-affirmation, there's meditation, journaling, therapist, and you just go with what works. Like, just keep doing what works. Like, it just, why change anything if this is what makes you content and happy?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I also focus on my comfort foods.
Yeah.
I have like certain foods that I know I'll always
which
eat.
foods?
I love tortellini.
Tortellini?
Yes, phenomenal. But I'll only
What
eat
is
it
that?
with. You don't know what tortellini is?
Maybe I've had it. I've just
It's
like never.
Pasta like filled with like meat. It's like
I've
ravioli,
had
but
tortellinis.
okay.
Yeah.
And I'll only eat it with 4 cheese sauce. I don't like it with any other sauce.
Cheese sauce. Wow. I love the taste of cheese, but it just doesn't do well for my gut health and my skin health. But I just like,
I love cheese.
If I'm really short term, like I would consume that, but I just usually I don't dabble in cheese. It's not good for me personally.
That's fair. I also love 70 Acre Pizza. It's a brewery here in Sherwood Park.
What's it called?
70 Acre. It's
70.
Just like right behind, it's in between Millennium Place and that like new car wash. It's not new anymore, but the Express
like the
car
X?
wash.
Yeah.
It's, their pizza is phenomenal.
You're not sponsored?
No, I should be though. Me and my boyfriend go there at least like once or twice a week.
Yeah, they have to sponsor you now.
And their pretzels are really good.
They're what, sorry?
Pretzels.
Pretzels?
Yes.
Like kind of those like big pretzels?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not like always the best option because I'm going and like spending more money than I should.
Yeah,
but I'm like, if I'm really not eating, I'll be like, okay, like let's go to 70 Acre and
maximize the unhealthy food day, the cheat day.
Yeah.
Then you dabble in that.
Exactly. And so like anything like that, I always love a good sandwich. Like doesn't matter what kind of sandwich, but I know I'll always eat it. And so if I'm really not eating, I'm like, okay, let's go to the Italian center and like buy you a little like sandwich or something. Those are always also so good.
Fair. What advice would you give to someone who has overcome an eating disorder but still faces challenges during difficult mental periods?
I think it's hard because it's so different for everybody. Like some people are binge eaters, some people are bulimic, some people are anorexic, or some people are just like they only eat like the bare minimum of what they need to in a day. And so it's like everyone's going to handle it differently, but at the end of the day, you just have to like keep reminding yourself like how you felt when things weren't okay is my biggest thing. Is I always look back on like the lowest points. And there's always been like 2 really low points for me, and it was when my eating disorder first started. And then the second one was in July of 2022. I had just gotten out of a relationship and it ended very messy. I lost a lot of friends from it because we were all in like a similar friend group.
Oh, that's the worst when you intermingle and you guys party all the time and then you break up. So everybody has to take sides. And of course, they have to go with the person that they were friends for longer or a better quality.
And so in that case, it was him. Like they were all like his friends, and it was very messy. Like me and him no longer talk. We don't associate ourselves with each other at all. And I wish it was so different. Like he's an amazing person. I wish him only the best. I truly wish that me and him could still be friends. Like there's no ill will there. And finally, just like this last year, we've kind of like the friends we've had have kind of like reconnected with me and all of that. But it was like bad. Like it triggered my fear of abandonment so bad. And it put me in such like a dark, deep place that I literally like was not eating, could not eat, like refused to eat, was constantly anxious, constantly felt sick. And it took me back to like how it felt when I first had one. And I just had to be like, I need to take time for myself again. So I like stopped seeing people. I really only saw my one best friend because she like understood everything and knew where I was coming from. And we were going on a camping trip like the next 2 weeks afterwards. And I was like, you just have to take all your comfort food and you have to like be there and be present and not let these like small things bother you. But it was like I was relapsing all over again. And it's like when you relapse, it's so hard because you're like, all this hard work that I've done is gone. And all this effort I've put in and all this time is just like, I'm right back at square one now. And it feels so impossible, but it's not impossible. Like it's so easy to fix it again. And it might feel really hard, but you just have to take time and like focus on yourself and be like, okay, like I've been here once before. I can do it again. And you have to take it slow. You can't like rush into it or force yourself to eat, because if you're just going to force yourself to, it's not going to be the same. And yeah, it's like, I don't know. It's so linear for everybody and so different for everybody that like, you can't like really be like, well, this is what you need to do. But you just have to like always remind yourself that it's not impossible and it's nothing to be ashamed of and it's nothing to not be open about, because the second you're open about it, the second people understand. Like when my best friend knew I had an eating disorder, she was like constantly like, Allie, like you aren't eating, you need to eat. And like when we went camping, she was like, well, we'll get things that are easy. Like we can't make smoothies while we're in the mountains. We're staying in a tent, but we'll get like yogurt drinks and like things that are full of protein so that if you're not eating, like at least you're still fueling your body. And I think that's like a big thing. It's my dietitian always told me, she's like, drink those like boost drinks, like those like drinks that are essentially like one meal in a drink. And I was always like, no, that sounds disgusting. Like I don't want to drink one of those. Like I refuse to. Like I'd rather just like drink a smoothie with like protein powder. And it's like in those moments when you're struggling, like go ahead and struggle. Don't like allow it to feel the full effect. Like allow yourself to really go through it, because if you don't allow yourself to go through it, you can't like really like process it all. And that's one thing for me personally. Like if I just kind of brush it off and be like, oh, it happened, it's whatever, it's like 4 days later, I'm a complete and utter mess. And so you have to let yourself feel it and you have to let yourself struggle, because once you do that, you're going to hit a point where you're like, I can't do this anymore. And you're going to want to get better.
Yeah. There comes a time where you can't change the external side of things. You have to approach it internally.
Yeah.
And yeah, their story is phenomenal. And I really admire the emotional intelligence that you do possess, and
Thank you.
the courage and the bravery that you have instilled in yourself, and the acceptance of, okay, sure, I've overcome that, but you're still aware of the setbacks and kind of the meaning that you have instilled into the rock bottoms, would you say?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely would.
Yeah.
I definitely can say I've hit rock bottom more than once. It's not a one-time thing. You do it plenty of times in your life.
Yeah. And then you don't let it plague you with the victim mentality, and you still get up and still get after it. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the Long-Term Podcast. Is there any last words to the listeners, viewers, about anything?
I just want to say thank you. You've like created such a platform to allow people to like express themselves. And like I personally before I even got here, I was like, I know I'm going to a safe space to like share my story. And like everybody who's listening might not necessarily love what everyone talks about, or they might like perceive it in a different way, or be like, oh, I don't like that person, I'm not going to listen. But like here in this room is a good place to talk. And I really appreciate that.
Thank you. That means a lot. And yeah, like people don't have to listen. If you don't want to listen, fuck off. You
Right?
know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to listen to another person, yeah, go to
Go
that
ahead,
other podcast. There's though certainly I want to, it's like a filtration system that I have. It's like, if you are a person that is, you know, kind of that cliquey mentality that, oh, stay hard all the time, you don't want to talk about your emotions, you don't want to,
Yeah.
sure, like cool, you could probably be the best person ever, but I want nothing to do with you.
Right? Like,
Like you could set up boundaries, you could set up like a lot of these things that do help you flourish, and that's kind of the main premise of kind of what we're all about, right?
Exactly.
We do what's best for us.
Yeah.
And that's kind of amalgamated to something beautiful. And we're so young.
We're so young, and there's still so much life ahead of us.
So much.
And I think sitting down and like realizing that it's okay to be vulnerable at such a young age is only going to make us all better.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think it's power. It really empowers us.
It does.
Yeah. Thank you again.
Yeah. No, thank you.
As always, to everyone listening and watching, there is a place for you in this chaotic world. Never lose hope, strengthen your faith, and keep it long term. Allie Hanson, everyone.